Hello, Fiendlings. How the hell are you? Today I received the proofs for the second edition of the Black Arrival trade paperback. It is absolutely amazing looking, and I'll be ordering some of these beauties before the rest of you rabble get your paws on them. In case you missed the announcement, February 14th is the day for the Valentine's Day Massacre, celebrating both the return of the Black to the podcast airwaves and the release of the Black Arrival second edition. That same day, the Black ebook will go on sale for 99 cents. So if you haven't purchased the ebook, Valentine's Day is the day to get both it and the first of two parallel stories. Keep that in mind. I'm almost finished recording An Ancient Trap, meaning my Patreon, Buy Me a Coffee, Ko-Fi supporters are nearing the end of a suspenseful 9-hour sci-fi adventure experience. For those of you that aren't supporters, you'll have to wait at least 6 months before the story begins on the podcast. So if you can't wait for a new one, visit my site, learn how to support the podcast, and get your claws on exclusive content. And speaking of supporting things, like my caffeine addiction, I drink a lot of caffeine to churn out all these words for y'all, and I get mine from corpsecoffee.com. Visit corpsecoffee.com, check out their array of coffees, boutique teas, and their wonderful webcomic and merchandise. Visit corpsecoffee.com and get the dead in your cup. With that, I'll let you get to your weekend. Be safe, have a great week, and we'll talk again real soon. Here's the finale of Jury Rigged. I pulled 2 of the extra piton rounds into the mech's free hand and trudged toward the platform's radio beacon with tentative steps. I couldn't see a damn thing. The particulates of sand, rock, and who knows what else had turned the water into an impenetrable soup. Without being able to see the ground in front of me, every step was a gamble. If I managed to step wrong on an obstacle or misread the terrain slope, I could easily tumble over and slide. Another shockwave hit behind us, this time causing my Casper to bounce more than a meter off the ocean floor. Jack said something, but it was completely unintelligible. I couldn't risk turning and looking back, not like there was anything I'd be able to see anyway. Holly kept saying, "Move!" over and over again as if in prayer. It wasn't helping. The ocean floor bucked hard, something flying up and slamming into the back of my suit. I stumbled forward, desperate to keep my balance, and managed to regain some stability before something else crashed into my flank, pushing me sideways and into the incline. "Anyone got eyes?" I called out.
"Can't see shit, Nate."
"I'm getting..." My words were cut off as Jack began screaming. Through his mic, I could hear the sound of metal straining and creaking.
"It's got my arm! It's got my..."
My HUD lit up with a warning. Jack's suit had been compromised. I swiveled the mech, desperate to turn around. Jack's words had become labored and jittery with either adrenaline or terror.
"Losing liquid,"
he said dumbly. "Hang on," I said. "I'm..." A rending screech of metal slammed through my ears just before the connection went dead. Half turned toward where he'd been, the storm of particulates was far too thick for me to see anything. It didn't matter. My HUD status told me everything I needed to know. Jack's mech was in pieces, and more than likely, so was he.
"Jesus!"
Gus yelled.
Jack, where?" "He's gone,"
Holly said coldly.
"Keep moving."
Something hit the back of my suit, high enough to rock my head forward and make the mech bend slightly at the waist. I turned back to face the platform beacon and took larger steps. If the engineers had seen fit to give us some thruster packs, I might have been able to fly through the water and make it there in a heartbeat. If.
"Nate, you're falling behind,"
Holly said. I didn't bother responding and forced the mech into a faster pace. Jack was gone. Even if he'd survived the mech's destruction, he'd have no breathing liquid, no protection from the icy water, and no way to rise 4 kilometers without bursting from the pressure change. He was either dead or as good as. If I waited around trying to determine which, I'd be next. 10 meters from the platform entrance, the water cleared. The vibrations on the ocean floor continued, pushing up small clouds of debris, but they only rose as high as the Casper's waist. Holly and the others had almost entered the safety of the platform's walls.
"Get in here, fast,"
Holly said. I still couldn't see the ocean floor, let alone the mech's feet, and I was already moving as fast as I dared, but Holly kept yelling at me. The Casper bobbled slightly as if pushed by a column of water. Before I had time to put 2 and 2 together, something slammed into my back and shoved me at a 60-degree angle. My HUD lit with alarms and warnings as the platform disappeared from view, replaced by the sight of sand and rocky floor. The suit became a noise chamber, the sound of the metal scraping against rock and grinding against the sand, all but tearing my eardrums apart. Grinding my teeth, a prayer on my lips, I kicked out with my left leg and angled it against the incline. The grinding noise increased for a moment before I finally managed to stop the slide.
Nate!
Holly was yelling. "Still here," I said. My brain felt as though it were swimming out there with whatever was trying to kill us.
Status?
I tried to bring the mech to a standing position, but the left leg was frozen at an angle. The HUD told the story all too well. One leg out of commission, frozen torso, and the left arm has less than 40% mobility. When Holly spoke again, she sounded less than relieved.
Pressure?
I grinned. No perforations. I'm pretty much through my armor on the rear, though. Another big hit, and I think I'm done. I brought up the map on the HUD and checked my position. It wasn't good. I'd slid more than 50 meters from the platform, rolling halfway down a massive rent in the ocean floor.
Stay there,
Holly said.
I'm coming to get you.
There were about 1,000 reasons I could say, "Don't bother," or "Save yourself," some bullshit like that. But I knew exactly what she would say in response. Still, we're trying. "Look, I can't move fast, and I'm over a damn cliff from you. Whatever hit me must have been big."
That's no lie,
Gus said. The ground trembled beneath me. Impact tremor? I thought. "Where did it go?" I asked.
Don't know.
Holly said.
I'm grabbing one of the piton launchers. I'll be there and... Look out!
Gus yelled. Holly said in a loud but relatively calm voice,
Flank! Flank! Flank!
Their voices continued chattering. Whatever was happening there had all three of them fighting for their lives. Brain still feeling as though it had leaked through my ears, I slowly increased the pressure on the right leg, willing it to give me enough leverage to hop up the incline. Each time I pressed down, the Casper tilted and tried to collapse on its side. When it did, I lowered the left arm with the spare pitons and used them like ski poles to right myself. The three voices yelling at one another over the radio became two, Gus's disappearing after a flash of static. Holly kept asking me for status, and all I could say was the same thing over and over again. On my way. Then two became one.
Nate,
Holly said.
Make it to the platform. I'm going to try and lead it out of there.
Lead what?
Whatever came out of the ocean floor. You'll see it,
she said. An alert flashed on my HUD. Holly, you're losing pressure,
I know.
she said.
Just get here. Get topside.
Do I have?
No, you don't. I'd be dead by the time you came after me. Just hit it with as many pitons as you can. If it...
Her words disappeared into a brief pulse of static. By the time I reached the top of the incline, the comms had been silent for more than 2 minutes. Each voice disappearing had resulted in alerts on my HUD, the Caspers signaling their demise. Holly, Gus, Jack, and Barb. All gone. As I awkwardly scaled the incline to stand on relatively stable ground, I realized I was the last human down here. Alien ocean floor. Aliens. Fucking great. The platform's luminescent strips were barely visible through swirls of ocean sand and who knew what else, but I didn't see anything moving. Too numb with shock to feel much, I forced myself to focus on keeping the mech's legs moving. I kept my suit lights affixed on the ocean floor 2 meters in front of me. Ambient light stretched 1 meter or 2 in all directions, but I needed to see what was directly in front of me. The last thing I needed was to ruin my chance of getting out of here alive by sliding back down the incline. Less than 20 meters away, the platform finally became real to me. Glowing with that strange eldritch light, it looked like something that belonged on an alien world. I smiled at the irony. With each step, the platform loomed larger. I alternated looking at where I was going with sweeping the lights over the platform's surface. It hadn't been a beautiful thing when we'd ridden down, but it sure as shit looked worse now. Several large dents, nearly 1 meter in diameter, spread across its nearest wall, but scratches and similar dimples marred its entire surface. I moved another step and froze, turning the mech's hands so the pitons supported my weight. Something moved behind the platform. No, several somethings. They seemed to lick over the metal, their amorphous shapes moving with unnerving grace. More and more appeared, all dancing with that strange beauty. The massive shapes moved as one, and I finally realized what I was looking at. The creature rose from behind the platform like a malevolent shadow. Long tentacles, each adorned with a crown of finger-like appendages, swiped through the water, kicking up clouds of swirling debris that made the platform seem to disappear, its luminescent strips light blocked by the flotsam. I fought the urge to move, not knowing what had attracted the creature in the first place. 4 of my friends had fought and lost to the thing. If I was going to be next, I was going to figure out a way to take the thing with me. As large and powerful as the pitons were, they couldn't possibly do more than piss the thing off. Hell, I didn't even know how big it actually was. It had certainly seemed larger than the platform itself, probably the majority of its bulk gathered behind it like a wedding gown. When had those fish things started to come see us? When had the quakes begun? When the drill had punched nearly 25 meters into the ocean floor. That's when the vibration had turned into something else. The vibration. Maybe it was about the drill hitting that vein of rock that had tipped the creature into action, or woke it up. I shivered. If this thing had been sleeping beneath the ocean floor, it was going to be as hungry as it was pissed. The vibration was the key. It had to be. I checked my HUD and blinked. The drill was still online, but powered down. It was time to wake it up. The engineers had told us the transmitter should reach from 50 meters or less, but the water's consistency or other properties might affect its range. Another way of saying, we have no clue. Right then, I could have strangled them. 70 meters from the drill site and only 10 from the platform. I watched the swirling debris for another moment and then did the only thing I could. I killed my lights. Without anything to illuminate the lightless ocean around me, I felt as though I'd been swallowed by deepest space. I gave myself 3 minutes before I turned my lights on again. Surely I could stand to be in the dark that long. It was harder than I thought. Inside my pressure suit, there was no sound, only vibration, and there was a lot of that. The bottom of my feet tingled as impact tremors shook the ocean floor. 10 seconds into my countdown, the vibrations increased, my bones beginning to rattle beneath my skin. After 15 seconds, my teeth clicked together like a cheap Halloween skull wind-up toy. 25 seconds into the countdown, the quakes decreased in frequency, but each tremor felt like being kicked in the head. Finally, they stopped altogether. That's when I began to wobble. Something was moving the water around me, creating its own current and threatening my balance. The Casper tried to flop over twice, but I managed to dig in with the pitons and prop myself up again. I waited like that, willing the mech not to tumble over from the water buffeting me. After another 10 seconds, the push of water, so much like a hurricane wind, finally subsided. When the full 180 seconds was up, I flipped on the lights, but there was nothing to see. Particulates had muddied the water, dropping visibility to half a meter. Cursing, I turned off the lights again. I had another 4 hours of breathing liquid before I had to top off back at the platform, but I couldn't possibly keep the mech stable that long. Plus, with my armor all but destroyed on the Casper's back, it wouldn't take much to punch a hole right through it. And me. I found the drill site on my HUD and calculated the number of steps from my position. It was more than I liked. I had to get at least 20 meters closer, and I couldn't risk using the lights for more than a second or two at a time. Hell, even that might be too long. If that thing evolved down here, it might not have eyes at all. Or if it did, then it might be blinded by the strength of the suit's lights. That, however, was a chance I really couldn't take. Not until I had to. I did my best to slip slide using the pitons as a lever like a person using a crutch. The damaged leg dragged against the sand every so often, hopefully creating a vibration like that of normal ocean turbulence. Yeah, right. I managed 10 meters before I hit something metal. The vibration was all too familiar to be anything else. I checked the HUD to make sure of my location and direction. The drill site was still a ways off, which meant it had to be a piece of debris from another Casper, or maybe one of our tools. I flicked the lights on and focused on the lower right view, where I'd heard the sound. The mangled torso of a Casper floated near me, its arms and legs shattered as though something had cracked the armor on each limb, dug inside and pried out the sweet meat. A black fish with crab-like mandibles feasted on a rope of intestine flapping out of the Casper's partially shattered torso. I turned out the lights. I stood there in the dark for a moment, unable to move, unable to think. The vision of that thing eating what was left of my friend was too much. That had been Holly's guts dangling out of the metal shell. The metal arm scraped against my mech as I finally managed to get myself, to get moving again. My arms and legs tingled with shock, and I kept feeling as though I were about to leave my body. Shock, concussion, it was all starting to set in. I knew what Holly would have said. She would have told me to get my ass in gear and finish the mission. Same thing she told others in our little company time and time again. After the mission, I'd heard her say from my memory, we get payback. I managed to pick up the pace a little after leaving Holly's remains behind. The occasional dull crunch against the hull told me when I'd hit a rock or maybe something biological, but I didn't bother turning on the lights. When it happened, I'd slowly move again, waiting to see where the resistance was and whether or not I could move past it. Tricky to do in the dark. When I thought I was in the transmission zone, I made a connection to the drill. It responded back with a short diagnostics message that it was in standby mode, waiting for commands. I activated my suit lights and slowly turned the mech around to face the landing platform. The beams penetrated much further than before. The long walk had given the particulates plenty of time to rain back down upon the ocean floor. The luminescent strips were dimly visible, but now seemed to be a million clicks away. The good news was, I didn't see any gaps in the strips. The creature had at least decided to leave the platform. Maybe. I lifted the piton launcher and pointed it toward the platform. Damn things would be like toothpicks striking metal armor, but they were all I had. Here goes, I thought, and activated the drill. This far away from the site, I couldn't feel much at first. The vibrations were light, nearly imperceptible. If I hadn't known to expect them, I might not have even noticed. I kept my eyes focused on the platform, waiting for something to happen, as the drill spun up to maximum speed. I commanded the drill to descend, and immediately the vibration intensified. The drill ground away at the hard metal ore, struggling to cut its way through. The platform's dim glow broke up as though something had passed between me and it. Come to Papa, I thought with a grin. Just then, the status lights turned to yellow, and the drill began shutting down. An alert appeared on my HUD. The drill had run out of drill string. I looked back at the platform. The luminescent strips slowly came back into view, their long lines undisturbed or blocked. The creature had retreated behind the platform. Why? Just because the vibrations stopped shouldn't have stopped it from heading over here to investigate or attack. So what was keeping it at the platform? It had to be something similar in nature. I turned off the suit's lights, still frozen in that awkward posture. The landing platform. What was so special about it? It had no engine to speak of. The surface platform had dunked us via cables, so what could possibly... I blinked in the darkness. The cables. Something might be vibrating the cables, and in turn making the entire platform vibrate. The metal was a perfect conductor. The ocean floor seemed to be as well. Cursing, I considered my options. If that damn thing was going to hang out by the platform until doomsday, I'd have to either rush the platform with my damaged leg, attempt to stealthily get inside the huge container without it seeing me, or fix the drill. Even if I managed to get past it, there was little to no guarantee that the lift mechanism wouldn't send it into a flurry of hostility. The last thing I needed was for it to puncture the breathing reserves or damage the hull integrity. If either of those happened, I'd probably dissolve once we reached the layer of chemical solvents floating atop the ocean. If I didn't, some of the equipment might. Then it was good night and Godspeed. Holly, light one up for me, be joining you soon. I shook my head and bolts of pain slid across my brain. At least it snapped me back into focus. The drill. Had to use the drill. I turned to face the drill site and flicked on the lights. So far, the creature hadn't responded to them. Otherwise, I'd have been dead long ago. With that in mind, I started the long, awkward walk to the drill site. Halfway there, something flitted out of the shadows, streaking straight through the beams of light. I froze in mid-step, struggling with the controls to keep the suit upright. Another black shape swam down at me, crossed the beams of my suit lights before smacking the damaged leg of my suit and heading back off into the darkness. Okay, I thought, I get the hint. I turned off the lights again, making sure to get a good idea of what lay between me and the drill site. This close to salvation, I couldn't risk falling or stumbling, but I was sure that Murphy bastard was watching just out of sight, a knowing grin on his face. I shuffled onto the drill skid. Jack and Holly had laid out the next 2 drill string segments before his suit was destroyed, before he stopped the drill, before everyone died. I shook away the thoughts and focused on the 2 long pieces of hollow tungsten alloy. Still holding the spare pitons, I bent down, the damaged leg folding behind me, and reached for the first drill string segment. The heavy pipe threatened to pull me over with its mass, but using the pitons for leverage, I managed to lift it off the ocean floor. I did my best to balance the pipe and try and keep either end from dragging on the sand. Last thing I needed was to make more vibrations. As carefully as I could, I finessed the pipe upward, doing my best to match the hopper's angle. The pipe banged off the metal hopper, the vibration traveling at my arm like tremors through a palsied hand. But it was in. One more, and I could start the drill. It was difficult to turn around with a damaged leg, so I walked backward instead, hoping to make it over the bundle of pipes behind me. Each movement was agonizingly slow, and the mech's foot nearly slipped on one of the pipes, but I managed. This time, the pipe refused to balance in my hand, and either end bounced like a seesaw against the ocean floor. The vibrations were more than enough to set my teeth on edge. When I made it to the hopper, I once again went through the terrible trial of trying to slide it in. Metal ground against metal, although I couldn't hear it. The drill's status changed. It was loaded and ready. The drill came to life with the same tenuous vibration, the feel of an engine spinning up to an impossibly fast speed. As carefully as I could, I began a slow shuffle to get within reach of the supply cache Holly had laid out. I reached the pitons and once more stood on a single leg, doing my best not to fall over. I managed to pull 2 of the spares with my free hand and transfer them, damn near losing my balance in the process. 3 pitons. I had 3 extra shots after the one in the launcher. After that, well, I'd be out of ammo. I couldn't possibly carry any more. That taken care of, I continued the shuffle to Holly's crates. Sure enough, she had brought mining charges. The explosives were designed to be put into a crevice or dropped down a borehole. Once detonated, the compressed shockwave would, in theory, fracture most outcrops of rocks or heavy veins of ore. Underwater, however, was a bit of a different story. The charges would work, but the shockwave wouldn't be nearly as deadly in an open area. Still, the vibration should make for a handy distraction if I needed one. I picked up 2 of the charges and activated their magnetics, affixing them to each crutch arm so I could quickly grab one if needed. I shuffled around with my lights off. When my eyes adjusted, I pointed myself directly at the landing platform. A slight green glow was all I could see, indistinct and amorphous. It was impossible to tell if the monstrous thing was still there, waiting for a morsel to approach. With that in mind, I walked as close as I could to the incline I'd slid down before. I knew this could turn into a catastrophe if one of the fish managed to knock me over the edge again. The suit's back had been exposed, and I doubted it would survive another tumble, not to mention the already foobar leg. Fuck it, I thought, and activated the drill. The grinding vibration spread out like its own shockwave, the ocean floor trembling beneath my feet, the tumbling churning the water in front of me, a fine cloud of sand rising a meter above my feet. When the drill head began tearing through the vein of ore that had made Jack turn it off in the first place, the ocean floor once again felt as though it were bucking. I didn't know if we'd hit a fault or some other seismological weakness and didn't give a shit. I made it about 10 meters before the strengthening ambient light of the strips disappeared. Shivers crawled up and down my spine. It was coming. The first impact tremor was nearly lost to the vibrations of the ocean floor. The second one, however, left no doubt that something huge was approaching. I dug in with the pitons, slamming them home into the rock to get as much stability as I could. When the third impact tremor hit, I was glad I did. The drill grinding through the rich vein of hard ore continued causing the earth to shake. My HUD lit up with more alarms. The drill head was on its way to overheating. Cursing, I disengaged the automatic cutoff, essentially keeping the drill's onboard computer from disengaging the drill head. Another impact tremor. Another. Then the water rushed against me like a hurricane wind, my good leg nearly losing purchase on the sandy floor. Without any light, I couldn't see it, but I felt its massive girth as it swam past. I waited until the turbulence subsided before restarting my walk. I couldn't be as cautious as I like now. The drill was nearing redline, and when it did, the motor was either going to burn out or explode. Once that was done, the distraction would be over, and I'd be crossing the distance between the platform and the drill site, just waiting for the monster to smash me in the back or appear before me, ready to block my path. I double timed it, flashing my lights every 5 seconds or so as I moved faster than was sane. The leg dragged behind me, the metal scraping against rock. Another alert popped up on my HUD. The drill motor was past the red line, and integrity warnings spilled across my vision. I turned off the warnings and continued the wounded shuffle. A flash of light broke through the darkness, casting wild shadows before disappearing. A shockwave of water buffeted the mech, but I was far enough away not to suffer any damage. That was it. The distraction was over. I still had another 20 meters to cover before I reached the platform. The ground shook violently as though a mountain had crashed down behind me. I pulled one of the mining charges from my arm and set it for 30 seconds before tossing it behind me. That left me with one more. The ground vibrated again, but much less than before. It was an impact tremor similar to those I'd felt. That massive tremor must have been caused by the creature fleeing before coming back to the drill site. I grinned. Maybe I'd actually heard it. 2 more impact tremors, much closer than I liked, rattled the metal suit. I silently counted down as I kept my rhythm on the controls. I couldn't see behind me. I couldn't keep my lights on. All I could do was keep my eyes focused on the green glow of the platform, willing the mech to make another step before the thing attacked. The charge went off. The shockwave was stronger than that of the drill, but only because I was closer. A heartbeat later, something huge smashed into the ground a few meters behind me. The force of the impact sent the mech sprawling, carrying me up and away from the ocean floor. I quickly changed the attitude of the torso and flung the good leg outward. When the Casper finally touched ground again, I managed to keep it from toppling over. I was almost to the platform now, the eldritch glow bathing the ocean floor in blessed light. The remains of a Casper arm lay near the entrance. I ignored it and continued moving. 2 more tremors told me the thing was close, maybe right on top of me. Using the pitons for help, I twisted around and flicked on the lights. At first, I thought lamps were damaged and hadn't come on. Then I realized something was blocking the light less than 5 meters away. Something that didn't even really reflect light. The platform groaned beneath me and the world tilted slightly. The goddamn thing was moving the platform. I pointed the piton launcher at it and fired. The tungsten alloy spear struck the creature nearly point blank and disappeared into its obsidian flesh. The platform fell back to the ground, the force making me stumble. When I looked back, I could see clouds of particulates swirling in the beams of light. I reloaded the launcher and headed to the control panels. The container began its diagnostics, checking for damage or any repairs that needed to be made before it was functional. Kind of unnecessary, really. Not like I'd have time to repair anything. 2 more impact tremors told me I wasn't going to have the chance in any case. The diagnostic reported all green. Finally, something was going my way. The container moved beneath me, the creature dragging it. No, motherfucker, I thought. You're not taking me down after all this. I pulled the last of the mining charges and affixed it to the piton. The makeshift spear wouldn't travel far with any accuracy, but if I could get the thing to move closer, I might be able to give it a little surprise. Shuffling back to the cargo door, I aimed my lights and took a peek, not wanting to step all the way beyond what little protection I had. Those strange, amorphous appendages were doing their dance over the metal, pulling and tugging as if trying to open a tin can. Then I saw what I needed to. The creature, its body little more than a shape itself, was to the left, its flank exposed. Math was never my strong suit, but I counted up the seconds it would take for the platform to rise from the ocean floor. Once I activated the control panel, the signal would travel up to the cables and to the lift floating on the surface of R'yr Prime's ocean. Without 4 other mechs adding to the container's mass, the winch should be able to bring me up faster. I hoped. Even so, I'd have to twiddle with the controls, make sure the damn lift was going to do its best and get me the hell out of here as fast as possible. 4 seconds. Maybe. I returned to the control panel, set the speed as high as I dared, and returned to the open bay door. The creature hadn't moved, and it had stopped dragging the container, but the metal floor vibrated from its appendages, spreading over and caressing the container's shell. I set the charge for 10 seconds and aimed. "Be with you in a minute, Holly," I thought, and fired the piton. The tungsten spear erupted from the tool and flew toward its target, its course almost immediately sliding to the right. Just before it began to tumble, it found its target. The container rocked as though hit by a child throwing a tantrum. Fighting against the sudden tilt and sway, I pushed off my good foot in the direction of the control panel and landed next to it a heartbeat later, and hit the control switch. The entire container shook as the cables began to pull upward. Maybe a meter off the ocean floor, the creature took a swipe at the container, knocking it into a slight swing. After activating the outside cams, I hoped to see something. Without lights, however, there was nothing to see. The seconds ticked off, my mind calculating the number of meters the container could possibly reach before the explosion. 6 meters, maybe. The container rocked again, a bright flash giving the cameras a few instants to capture the carnage. The piton had punctured the creature's flesh just enough to push the charge inside. Chunks of the amorphous thing had blown outward, the water turning milky around the great wounds. The container swung harder this time, tilting at a 5-degree slope that made me want to lean. After one more punishing punch to the bottom of the container, the only vibration was from the water sliding against the container's roof. After refilling my mech's breathing liquid, I leaned against the bulkhead, not bothering to strap in. The container's walls had dents that had stretched the metal nearly to the breaking point. The diagnostic sensors claimed the container was still pressure tight, but after the battering it had, I didn't really believe it. I sent a message up the cables that the mission had failed, 4 hands lost. I wasn't expecting a reply, but I got one anyway. We'll try again tomorrow.